Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. You've said you're going to contribute towards the Sustainable Development Goals, which are quite lofty, things like poverty eradication. How practically do you do that as a bank?
Well, we have a range of instruments which actually are used to finance operations, interventions in the areas that you just indicated, including poverty reduction. For example, we support things like training, skills development. These are very important things, actually, if you want to change your economy. And so the bank gives patient capital, as you might know. We invest in countries with relatively low-cost capital, if you want me to put it that way. And that gives the countries opportunities. Basically, what we spend our time doing is to leverage the financing that we have to several factors, and in a way that countries that don't have access to capital markets, for example, may not be able to mobilize these kind of resources. So it's really our mandate, basically, to kind of mobilize this kind of funding. And the areas that we work in is actually, like you indicated, are wide-ranging, and we covered almost the whole spectrum of the Sustainable Development Goals, including things like climate change. For example, we are managing the Africa Green Climate Fund, and so they're quite important.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that the bank is quite involved in, obviously, is infrastructure.
Yes.
We saw this big project in February, a bridge linking Senegal and the Gambia, in order to ensure that trade and there's a better movement and more trading between the two countries. How many more of these projects are we going to see this year and perhaps in the next 3 years?
Well, we have a wide range of pipelines in infrastructure projects, obviously. If you want me to put numbers, I couldn't probably tell you that we are going to do 10 or 15. But what I'm saying is that infrastructure is one of the core issues that the bank supports. It's one of the high 5 priorities. As you know, we have our strategy. So infrastructure financing is one of the key elements of our strategy for the next, until 2023, actually, when we get probably a new one. So it's one of the things we do all the time. We did a similar sort of bridge in Mozambique, for example, and there are several others that they take a highway in Kenya. So there are quite a range of those. If you ask me, are we going to do 15 or 20? I wouldn't tell you, because, like I'm saying, the processes have to go through the board, and those board processes, I can't put numbers on them immediately. But it's at the core of what we do.
One of the things that's spoken about a lot is the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. It's a way that Africa is trying to ensure that it leverages its power, its human capital, in order to ensure that there's more trade and more money flowing between the countries. Yes. Now that it's past this threshold of the amount of companies that need to sign it, what next, and what can we expect to see, and how can we say this Continental Free Trade Agreement is working and we can see the results like this?
Yeah, countries are now going to domesticate many of these commitments, and that means one area that I think there's going to be a lot of effort to be made is on the free movement of people. Goods move a little bit, but movement of people, particularly people, is one of the areas that I think more work needs to be done, including the fact that you can now probably go and work in Uganda without so much restriction on visa requirement and so on. Now, if we can achieve that, I think that would be one of the major step in realizing the Continental Free Trade Area. But for now, I think capital and goods moves relatively easier compared to people.
Something that also moves very easily is digital currencies, the digital economy. It said there's about $600 billion combined across the African continent in that sector. How is the bank trying to work in that space and also deal with those issues?
Yes, I think what you call the fourth industrial revolution, digitization, the Internet of Things, these are all things that we are very interested in. In fact, we participated in last week there was a meeting on digitization in Kigali, and we think that is an important investment to make. And so the bank is actually putting its money where its mouth is in that regard. It is important because you can talk of all sorts of things, including e-governance. I think we are about to approve, we are working on a project in Lesotho, for example, on e-governance. Things like that are quite important in the way then how countries can transform themselves in the modern era, given the need for leapfrogging. We don't have to reinvent the wheel in many of these things. We can leapfrog and invest in smart and clean technology immediately. And I think that is something that we intend to keep doing.
I'm glad you spoke about leapfrogging and the fourth industrial revolution, because Africa is said to be the world's largest market for smartphones and phones, but we are still lagging behind, especially when it comes to digitization and the fourth industrial revolution. How then, and what's the role of financial institutions like the bank in ensuring that you leverage all those things that we've spoken about during the course of our conversation?
Yeah, like I said, there are a wide range of areas that we need to pay attention to, including support to startups. There are a lot of smart kids who are coming out of universities with engineering degrees. If we can leverage capital for them to invest in these new areas, obviously we need to put more money on the infrastructure, particularly internet connections and so on. But alongside that, we also need supportive infrastructure like energy to make sure that you are able to charge your phone, if you want to put it as simple as that. But it is more than just that. So all the other things that we are doing actually support this move towards the process of leapfrogging to try to make sure that Africa invests in smart technologies and so on.
Next month, the bank is hosting a meeting of central bank governors from across the continent, finance ministers, and people from overseas. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, the bank, as you might know, is a membership organization, basically. We have regional member countries and non-regional member countries. And every year we have an annual meeting, and this year is going to be happening in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea. And it will basically revisit the work program of the bank and all the things that we are doing, including also setting forward. It's not just backward looking, but also forward looking, the kind of things that we need to be doing in the next couple of years. And so it will give the opportunity for the governors. The governors are actually the finance ministers, as I was saying, it's a shareholding organization. The finance minister will come and we will brief them on what we are doing, and they will then give us the matching orders, if you want me to put it that way, of the things that we need to do moving forward.
Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. George Kararach from the African Development Bank speaking to us in studio there. Stephen, it's over to you.